Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, it's not good enough? Like perfect is the only standard, but you're still left feeling behind? Perfectionism keeps us stuck. It robs us of peace, of our joy, and the freedom to just be. That's why I created Beauty of Imperfection, Good is Enough, a guided workbook to help you let go of the pressure, quiet your inner critic, and start celebrating progress over perfection. Inside, you'll find tools that remind you your worth has never depended on being perfect. It's time to embrace the beauty of imperfection because good really is enough. Let me remind you, you are always worthy. You already are. Get your copy of my workbook today. Emotionally unavailable.
All right. Well, welcome. I'm excited to meet you. I was reading your profile again earlier, and this is happening more and more to where I get way too excited when I read somebody's stuff. And then I don't even know where to start because I've like, oh, I want to know about this. I want to know about this. So you're a wealth of information. So I thought we would just start with a little backstory, like maybe who you were in your previous life and what your struggles were to reach a turning point.
So I can do that, but let me ask you this. What would your listeners most find valuable? Because you're right. I have a lot of different angles that I could take things.
Um, I think hearing about what your struggles were, to have you develop the framework that you developed.
Okay, that sounds good. So yeah, short story long would take up too much time. So the quick version of that backstory is I was married for 22 years to a woman who I didn't realize at the time was controlling, manipulating, blame shifting, gaslighting, like all of those wonderful things, so that by the end of the 22 years, there was pretty much nothing left of me. And again, I didn't really realize it. The backstory to the backstory and how I was able to finally realize that something wasn't right, even though I didn't know what not right meant, is when I was a teenager, and this is like, alert for anybody that could be triggered, but when I was a teenager, I was sexually assaulted and then 2 years later raped. And we're talking about age 13 and age 15. And those were never resolved therapeutically or just, on my own. And it was so bad that, like, if somebody even made reference to that, which is why I gave that alert, if
Mm-hmm.
somebody even made reference to something like that, I'd have to go, I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. And like run out of the room. I mean,
Yeah.
it was pretty severe PTSD. And my ex wife was a police officer.
Oh.
And when I met her, I was uh, going through, I mean, really from the age of 13 when I was sexually assaulted and onward, I had um, what was diagnosed as chronic depression, but in actuality, when I was 32, I had a very intense manic episode. And so I was finally diagnosed as bipolar. And apparently, when you treat somebody with depression, with who's bipolar with depression medicine, it makes it worse. So I think that's why it got so intense for that 1 year. And I mention that because one, I was just coming out of my manic phase when I met her, and entering a depressive phase, and my finances were shot because during my manic phase, I went on a spending spree,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I was filing bankruptcy. The reason I mention that is the two things I most lacked in my life was a feeling of safety and a feeling of financial stability. So she offered both of those.
Yeah.
And she used that, which I didn't actually realize until a month ago, but she used my vulnerability, my my victimization, call it, as a tool to get controlled. So it became a situation where um, she presented things that I would only be safe if I was with her. I would
Mhm.
only be financially stable if I was with her. Um, and so I really had pretty, you know, intense obligation to her in a way, and felt very much like I couldn't handle living on my own. Like that, I would be homeless. I would be a drug
Yeah.
addict. I would be, whatever. I would be raped and violated if I didn't have her, sort of protecting me. And it was pretty intense. Like if we'd walk down a street in Boston, we both really liked Boston. And if we walked down the street in Boston, she would constantly be subtly nudging me to either the inside part of the street or the outside, depending on whether there was a danger, whether there was a homeless person or whether, you know, so I was constantly made to feel like I couldn't protect myself.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought, oh, wow, somebody who wants to protect me. But really, what I needed was to have that safety come from internally, right? I needed to know that I could keep myself safe.
Right.
And in terms of the financial control, when I met her, I had a job that I was successful at financially. Um, I worked there for I don't know, 7 years. This is back in the early 90s, making 100,000 a year, so doing, quite
That was
well
bank
for that
then,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was, a lot of money, and I had to quit that job because I became so depressed. I was hiding under a desk, and I was a manager,
Yeah.
of a sales crew. So, um, when I met her, I had to quit that job. I was on unemployment. I was trying to start a business, but having a lot of struggles. And she would give me ultimatums about my jobs. So I finally, after coupling with her, I was growing a personal training business into something that had potential. I had a book out, I had two other trainers working for me. I had developed, this is back in the day of CDs and DVDs. I had
Yeah.
developed a training course on DVD. Um, and we had been
That was a big
splitting our time.
deal.
It was.
Yeah.
Um, we had been splitting our time between, the San Francisco Bay Area, and, area that she wanted to move to, and it was a delightful area, in the Central Coast of California, and, she one day said, "Okay, you need to live somewhere full time." And I'll just join you the half of the week, but we need you to make more money, so you either have to stay here or go where we want to retire, which is this other place. And she made it pretty apparent that I needed to go to the Central Coast property, which again was a nice area, so it's not like I was being banished to some horrible place.
Yeah.
And she said, "When you move, because you're gonna have to start from scratch, I don't think you should start, with a personal training business because 'cause that'll take you too long, so I think you need to do real estate." Well, it turns out I did a great job in real estate, and I
Yeah.
made a lot of money, like the 100,000 looked like chump change.
Yeah.
I made a lot of money, but that, I think, threatened her because after a handful of years of doing that, and I felt so fantastic. I felt like, I don't know if you've ever done the why exercise where you try to come up with what your why is. And my why for being successful was to have self-esteem because I associated self-esteem with money, like how much
Yeah.
money I could bring in.
Yeah.
And so I'd gotten to a place where I had really good self-esteem because I was bringing in so much money to the family. And I realize now she must have been threatened by that because it was an area of control she no longer had.
Right.
So she bought a house in a city that I had never been to, Portland, Oregon. And turns out I don't like Portland, Oregon. For the listeners listening, I'm so sorry, but I didn't.
Hey, we've
Um,
all got our
but
places.
exactly. So she bought this house. It was a very rundown house and a cool area, but a very rundown house that she was going to fix up, which she never did. And so I had to quit my real estate job
Yeah.
and move up there. So
Ew,
I had no money
rude.
again, and I had
Yes.
no they people like her also isolate you. So in my job where I was in real estate, I had a lot of friends, I had a lot of clients, I was constantly busy. My phone was always ringing, to a point it probably wasn't good. Um, and up in Portland, Oregon, I knew nobody, you know?
And what do you think
So
was
it
the
was
narrative that stopped you from just staying and doing your own thing and being like, "Well, I guess, you thought that was good for you. Go do that, but I'm not going."
well, I thought I wanted to be married, you know? I mean, at that point, we had been married for 12 years. And, I mean,
Marriage to you
I,
felt
this
like
is,
that level of sacrifice?
well, so I thought we had a good marriage because we never fought. What I
Oh,
didn't
yeah. Yeah.
realize was we never fought because
'Cause you
I
did
had
everything she
learned to
wanted
never
you to do.
disagree.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought we had a good marriage. And I actually, when I met her, I didn't want to get married. I had no examples in my family of successful marriages. And she sort of convinced me to get married. And once I committed to that, I took it seriously. I didn't want to be another divorce statistic in my family.
Yeah.
And so and I didn't know I was being controlled. I thought I was just, she was wanting to move there and, fulfill her dream of remodeling a place that again never got remodeled. And,
Ugh.
um, so I followed her. So the turning point, now to get to the good part of the story, well, bad part, good part, it ggets worse before it gets better, right?
Always, yeah.
Um, yeah. So the turning point came about in 2020, January or February of 2021. Um, I went through intense trauma therapy. So it was 8 hours a day, 5 days in a row. Um, it wasn't EMDR. It was a sort of spinoff of EMDR called progressive counting, and it's for anybody who needs trauma training. It's awesome. I mean, trauma therapy. Look at it. Um, so as I'm leaving that therapist's office after the 8 hours a day, 5 days in a row, he said to me, over the next 2 years, he said, you won't necessarily see an immediate shift. He said, but over the next 2 years, things are going to change because you just set down this massive load that you've been carrying. And to be honest, that scared the shit out of me. Like,
Yeah.
change? I don't want anything to change. Life
Yeah,
is just fine.
yeah.
I don't want anything to change. Don't tell me about change. Well, without realizing it, over the next 2 years, things did start to change. And I was resisting her control a little bit more. And so I think that's why the control mechanisms got so much more intense. It got to the point, so she had a doctorate degree in chiropractic, so she was very well educated, and she had had a career in law enforcement, which she was retired from. And so she knew everything about everything. And I knew nothing, even though I have a master's degree in international business, but I knew nothing. I was stupid. And I had to follow her instructions on everything to make sure things were done right. And by 2022, 2023, it got to the point where I could not do anything without her permission, basically. So I'll
Ugh.
give you two examples. One is a basic thing, but I remember myself, and I can look on my phone today and see the photos. I saved them. I remember I always did all the grocery shopping, right? That was my job. So I did the grocery shopping, but I could never buy the right thing. So I would go into the aisles and I would take pictures of the toothpaste and say, which one should I buy? Because if I bought the right brand but the wrong flavor, or the right flavor but the wrong brand, I would get the eye roll and the deep sigh and you always waste money because you don't get the wrong thing. A bigger example that was more the turning point, when I saved this letter or this 4-page document as well, just to like my heart's beating hard when I think about it. So um this happened just like a month before I finally realized something was wrong and I have to leave. Um my dog had explosive diarrhea and she has really long white fur, and so when she has diarrhea it gets all over her butt. Again, sorry anybody who's listening. It gets all over her butt, and my ex-wife never did anything. So she was outside talking on the phone to a friend as I'm cleaning up my dog's nasty ass. And so I'm, scrubbing it and cleaning it, and I, get her all taken care of. We go inside. My ex gets off the phone and she says to me, "You did that all wrong. You should have waited until I was off the phone so I could tell you how to do things. That's a biohazard. It's a biohazard. And I'm the only one who can tell you what to do in terms of a biohazard because I was a police officer and I was
It's
a
dog
chiropractor. So I
shit.
know how to do. Yes, it's
It's
dog
dog
shit.
shit.
So she proceeded to give me a 3-hour-ish lecture talking nonstop about code 1, code 2, code 3, and code 4 situations. And I was
No.
allowed to make decisions on code 1 items, which I'm not
Wow.
even sure brushing my teeth was a code 1 item because I could do it wrong and choke
You
on
could
the
do it
cigarette. I
wrong.
mean on the toothbrush.
Yeah.
I never got total clarity as to what a code 1 was. But a code 2 or above, I could not do anything unless she told me what to do. And so after this very long lecture, she left to go meet up with a friend she'd been on the phone with. And I wrote a 4-page document titled something like, "For my love, I am so lucky to have you in my life to keep me safe and give me, I totally know that you know more than I do, and I need to defer to what you have to say. So I want to make sure that I understood everything that you told me. So a code 1, according to my understanding, is blah, blah, blah. And a code 2, according to my understanding, is blah, blah, blah. And if it's a code 2 and you're not home, this is what I have to do. And if it's a code 2 and you're
God.
home, this is what I have to do." And
Wow.
it was sincere. Like when I showed it to my therapist later, he said, "Was this, like sarcasm?" Yeah. I'm like, "No, it was sincere. It's like what
He's
I
like,
thought I
"Bitch,
had
I'll
to do
slap
to make
you."
sure
Tell
I
her.
didn't get in trouble." And I said that to myself in my head all the time. I have to do this right or I'll get in trouble.
Yeah.
Even things like cleaning a cutting board. I mean, it goes on and on. So the reason I mention these is psychological abuse is really different from other abuses. I've had
Mhm.
obviously the sexual abuse, I've had physical abuse, but the tricky thing about psychological abuse, and none of them are better or worse than the other. I'm not
Right.
making any statements there. But the tricky thing about the psychological abuse is it's so little and so constant that you don't know it's happening.
Right.
You know, it's just this little chip, chip,
It's
chip.
so normal.
Yes. And any of the things taken by themselves are not like a big deal, right? Like
Right.
taking a picture and a toothpaste, it's not a big deal. But it's when you exist an entire day of being told you can't make these decisions for yourself because you're not smart enough.
Mhm.
Um, and I am pretty smart, I'll just say, but I didn't believe it back then.
Yeah.
And back then wasn't that long ago. So, shortly after writing that letter to her, making sure I understood what the parameters were for me to make a decision by myself, I somehow and again, I didn't have a word for it, but I started to realize that there was something off. My dog has to go to the bathroom. Do you edit these? Can I
Yeah,
let her
go ahead.
out real quick? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry about that. Otherwise, she'll be crying the whole time. I may have to let her back in, but I'm sorry about that. She
That's
was
all right.
sleeping soundly, and it's don't let sleeping dogs lie, right? So, anyhow, um, shortly after that letter, I was having panic attacks so severe that I'd be laying on the floor vomiting in the bathroom. My dad would be on speaker and I'd be saying, I can't leave. I can't leave because I didn't think I could, provide for myself. And he'd say, well, you don't have to leave now. You can leave later, when you're ready. And then I would really get hysterical. I can't stay. I can't stay.
Yeah.
Um, and somehow I managed to um, articulate one day um, on the phone, which isn't the best way to do it, but it was how I felt like I could on the phone that I wanted a divorce. And she wouldn't let me leave. Now, again, she didn't have a gun to my head, but it was financial control. We can't afford that. So we'll just have to live in the same house, but, live separately. Um, and we already were living in separate bedrooms. So I'm not sure exactly what that would have looked like, but
Right.
um, we
You're like,
can't we
and
can't
we're
afford it.
doing that already, and it's not
Right,
working well.
right. For me, right?
Right. Well, you
So
seem really happy, actually. I'm not.
yeah, right. So I asked for the divorce on March 3rd, and I proceeded to um, find a place that was super cheap and awful and furnished and utilities paid and accepted pets and was within an hour of our house so that we could share pet responsibility. Um, and I presented that to her. I said, look, I found this really inexpensive place. And the weird thing is, I was making money then, but I felt like I couldn't leave without her permission,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though I had income. So she said, no, that's too much and you can't leave. We can't afford it. So then I found another place that was even cheaper, even worse. And presented that and again was met with no, you can't leave. So I was walking with a friend, bless her heart. I was walking with a friend who was very different than me and absolutely has never been controlled in her life. And I was I was
We
telling
all have
her,
that friend. Yeah.
yeah, I was telling her, I'm so grateful for her. I was telling her, what was going on. And she said, well, why don't you just leave? And I said, well, she won't let me. And my friend stopped and looked me in the
He's
eyes and
like,
said, what do you mean she won't let you? You're a 55-year-old woman. You don't need her permission. And it was like she took this giant bowl of ice cold water and threw it on my face. And I finally sort of woke up and I was like, "Oh my god, you're right." Like I like I can leave. So I knew I wouldn't be able to leave if she was there. And she was getting ready to take a month-long trip. Um and so I found a place to live that actually was nice cuz we could afford it. It was a nice enough place and took pets and moved while she was gone. I took 2 carloads of my personal belongings and emailed her. And that's a horrible way to do it, but it's the
yeah.
only way. My
Yeah.
my visual is crawling out of the house into the car. I mean, that's not what it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, but that's what
and
it felt like. I could see that.
that's what it felt like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so anyways, that was the turning point because once I got, free of her clutches, I very quickly started realizing what I'd been in, you know? Like, I couldn't see it when I was in it, But as soon as I got out of it, um, I started connecting the dots that, oh my God, like I was being severely controlled and manipulated and blamed and gaslighted and all of that stuff. I didn't even know what those words meant. Well, I knew controlled and manipulated, but like
Mhm.
gaslighting, I had never heard of that. Um, my father had described me before I left as the frog in the pot. I don't know if you've heard that expression,
Mm-mm.
but if you put a frog in cool water, if you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. If you put a frog in cool water and you gradually turn up the temperature, the frog cooks to death.
Yeah.
And that's what I was. It wasn't like a punch in the face. It
Right.
was this slow, gradual increase of control and manipulation and belittling um, over 22 years. And so finally, when I left, I realized that. And at first, do you want me to stop talking for a minute?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if you had questions or anything.
No.
So the first thing I did when I left was I realized that her behavior was what a narcissist does. I don't want to say she's a narcissist because I'm not a diagnostician. I don't know, but I joined Circle's app support group, and I would listen either to the support groups or to books like It's Not You, and some of the other books about narcissistic
Yeah.
relationships. I would listen to them literally from the time I woke up till the time I went to bed, except for any time I was working, or sleeping. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's the only time, because if I didn't, again, the thing with that kind of abuse is it gets so ingrained in you that you doubt yourself, which is why that book is called It's Not
Yeah.
You, because you keep
Yeah.
going, was it me? Even now, sometimes I go, was it me? And then I pull out that 4-page letter, or, I think about,
Yeah.
something, and I go, okay, no, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. But, it's so, I had to have that constant reminder that it wasn't me. So finally, after about, let's see, May, June, July, 3 months of that, um, I realized that all the people in the support groups, not all the people, a lot of the people in the support groups were staying stuck in a victim pattern. And I didn't wanna stay stuck there for forever. Like, I
Yeah.
knew there was something else, but I didn't know how to get there, and, so I went on my Audible app, and I looked at some books that I had downloaded, and there was a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Mhm.
and I didn't know anything about him, I didn't know anything about the book, but I thought, "Well, that's a cool title, so I'll listen to that." And, Dr. Joe saved me. Yeah, I actually I well, so anyways, his work helped me realize the loop between your thoughts cause your emotions, cause your behavior, causes your experience, which causes your thoughts, which cause your emotion. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And also that we become addicted to the chemicals. So
Yes.
the feeling of victimization or of anger or of fear, that's like cortisol and adrenaline. So your body actually gets addicted to that, just like it would crack. It gets addicted to it. And
Yep.
so even if you break the spell of whatever was causing it initially, like being married to somebody who treated me that way, you then find another way to get those chemicals
Yeah.
because your body needs it. So, understanding those two things from Dr. Joe's work and then compounding that with meditation. So, a lot of people, myself included, think they can't, well, thought, but think they can't meditate because, the idea is of, stilling your mind and sitting in cross legged positions, saying om or whatever. And
Right, right.
you know, I had tried that when, before I had met my ex. I was on a spiritual path and I had tried meditation and always felt like a failure. Like I just, I had so much chaos in my head
Right.
that I couldn't do it. Well, Dr. Joe's meditation process is completely different. And I'm not saying the thing about meditation is there's so many different kinds, and I'll elaborate on some options for people in a minute, but there's so many different kinds. There is some kind that will work for you, and what works for you now may not work for you in a year, and or may not be what you want. So, like for a year, I was meditating 3 to 4 hours a day using his meditations because I could do it, right?
Yeah.
And in the process of doing those meditations, I got connected to my true self, and was guided into what I've created, which is Paramore Paradox. Um, and I can elaborate on that if you want, or not if you don't want. But that's what got me connected to what I call my true self, which is my mission now is basically to connect everybody to their true self because their true self is miraculous.
Right.
So anyways, I don't do his meditations anymore because I'm exploring other meditations.
Sure.
So I'm not telling people go do Dr. Joe's meditations, but I am saying there's so many different kinds out there. Something will work for you.
Yes.
Mindful eating is a meditation, paying attention to like the texture and the flavor, and um, taking a walk in nature where you make it your goal to um, see things or hear things or whatever that you've never experienced before. That's meditation. Just focusing on your breath as you walk, that's meditation. So the idea that it has to look a certain way a lot of times keeps people from it.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
the reason I mention that is because people often ask me, like, what's the step to hear your true self? And the first step is the second step is awareness. The first step to get to the awareness is to quiet the mind. And quieting the mind, it's impossible really without some sort of meditation practice. And again, it doesn't have to look like meditation, but some way of quieting the mind enough to then become aware of that loop.
Well, it's about
Oh,
being
I'm,
present.
yep, being present. Um, so breaking that loop, the thought, feeling, behavior, experience requires awareness, and the awareness can be at any stage. So it could be, God, I feel like crap. Why do I feel so terrible? Oh, that's right. I was telling myself that I'm a terrible writer. Okay, so let's adjust that. Or it could happen at the behavior. Oh my God, why did I just do that? Oh, it's because I was feeling that because I was thinking that. So the awareness can create change at any level in that process, but you have to have
Yeah.
awareness, and the awareness doesn't come until you've quieted your chatty mind.
Oh, I
So,
agree. I
so
agree.
there's
I had a
there's my
very
story.
noisy brain. So, yeah, I
Yep.
totally get that. You let me see what the wording was in this thing that I was like, "Oh."
While you look for that, I'm gonna do a quick check. It's snowy outside, so I don't want her to stay out there. She doesn't want to be out there, but she wants to be out there, so it's okay.
So, what is the Paramore Paradox? Is that
Paradox.
Yeah.
So, um, during meditation, so each of the things I'm going to tell you about happened either during meditation or like shortly after meditation. None of them were a logical thing. So, the first thing, the book, um, Be the You That's More You Than You've Ever Been. Um, I had meditated. I was chatting, literally chatting out loud, which is what I do to talk to my true self. I was chatting with my true self and I said, hey, what am I supposed to do with my life right now? I had just lost a job. I was a contract worker. And so I said, hey, what should I do? And my true self immediately said, so I always say out loud the very next thing I hear, which was go find your book that you wrote in 1999. which is pre-X, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, huh. I mean, that was really out of left field. I barely remembered I wrote the book. I couldn't remember exactly what it was about. But I'm a digital hoarder. And so I was able to go on my computer and dig out this book from 1999. And it had a different title back then. My 30-year-old self had named it actually a great title, Creating Your Masterpiece as a Work of Art, or crafting your something to that effect. And the structure or the intent of the book was very similar to what I have created now. Um, but um, so my true self, when I found my book, I didn't know what true self wanted me to do with it. Um, but I opened it up and I looked at the first chapter, and the first chapter was made up of 8 exercises. Um, the first one is called Who Am I? And that's sort of become my foreplay that I give to people to get started in the process. So the Who Am I? And then there were 7 other exercises, and I did them. And in doing them, I remember saying to myself, God, who wrote these? These are amazing. And they really helped me,
You're like, what
like,
the hell? I really could have used these.
yeah, I could have used these, damn it. Um, so so I started hearing like what I'm here to do, right?
Yeah.
These questions. And so I continued to do questions from the book and also just create my own questions and exercises to help me, because I realized that really what it is it's like an excavation of self, right?
Mhm.
And the questions and exercises helped me dig. And then what I call the memories um, or experiences that you dig up, I call those artifacts. And this is actually the model that I use in the current book. That was not in the original book. So first you start off as an archaeologist and you use the questions and exercises I provide to dig stuff up. The stuff you dig up are artifacts. The artifacts then help you understand things like your passions, your values, your uh, um, mission, your like all those things that are sort of foundational for us. And then you also come to understand your superpowers, because our superpowers are something we don't know because we think
Yeah.
everybody knows how to do it, right? So you uncover your superpowers and your strengths that were buried in the trauma experience and things like that. So, and then you architect your true you 2.0 self, which is what I call it. So you go from archaeologist, look at the artifacts, create using being an architect and design your true you 2.0 self. So that's the model of the book. And it breaks the process down into the 4 bodies. So mental, emotional, physical, and energy. And the first chapter in each section gives people an understanding of the science, the philosophy, the metaphysics, that kind of stuff that is the current foundational understanding of that body. And then the second chapter in each section is the excavation, where you get literally 100 different questions and 20 to 40 different exercises. It is at the very
I love
beginning,
that.
I say, you don't have to do all these, right? Pick and choose. And actually, the journal I just finished helps with that. But, pick and choose. The third chapter in each section is called The Web. And that actually was in the original 1999 book, back before people were talking about the web. So the web is, you do one little thing different in your life, and that ripples out into your life, but also into the
Yep.
world as a whole.
Yep.
And so every section has one of these sort of fictional chapters. The fifth section is the architect. That's where it's integration. It's where you um, put together your true 2.0 self. And I I'm really excited about what I was guided to do instead of doing goals and like SMART goals where you break them down into steps. Um, I really tap into the idea of consciousness and time as an artificial constraint, and retrocausality, and I explain all this in the book in pretty simple terms, but bringing your future self into the now so that you don't have to wait 10, 20 years to
Right.
be your future self. You're already your future self.
Mhm.
So you can manifest things very quickly as a result of that. Okay. So that's the first part of Paramore Paradox. Um, at the end of a meditation, I also heard something else. I told you I had just quit my job. I mean, lost my job. And I had toyed with the idea of starting a t-shirt business on Shopify. One of my jobs was actually working with a guy who taught people how to do Shopify. So I had come up with a quote that I thought was really funny. Um, so it's actually not in my shop now, but I'll tell you the quote because I do think it's really funny. I'm a glass half full kind of person until I look around and go, where the fuck did all the water go? So that was sort of my like how I came to see, my behavior and my looking at the world. So I thought, oh, I want to
Yeah.
make a t-shirt store with kind of funny things. So after a meditation, my true self said, nope, right idea, wrong subject. You need to
Mm.
connect the t-shirt store to the messages and the process in the book. So the
Oh,
t-shirts
okay.
actually all have thought-provoking messages or emotionally supportive messages that are written on the back of the t-shirt up high along the collar. And the idea is for somebody standing behind you in line to read the message
Yeah.
and be inspired by it or have their true self, triggered by it.
I love
The
that.
next thing the next thing that my true self told me to do was the journal, and the journal, again, is unlike any journal I've seen out there, and it expands people's experience of the book. It's not a replacement, and it's not just blank pages. It's really a I think, I get excited when I do something well, and I really do think it will help people, so I'm excited about that. I just finished it, so it should be published soon. Um, the next thing my true self told me to do was create a course, and that was not any revolutionary idea because I've created other online courses, so it just kind of makes sense. But I was told to do that, and that's still probably not till next year. Um, Oh, back up. So before the course, I was told to create a community. And a lot of people haven't heard this term before or this expression, this thing. It's called a murmuration. I
Ooh,
don't
I
know if you've.
haven't.
So a murmuration is when I'm sure you've seen like the flocks of starlings that all move together in crazy patterns,
Yeah.
and and also schools of fish, for example, and there is no leader. What they do is each bird, each starling becomes aware, stays aware of the six birds on any side of it. And they all move together as one unit, and yet they are individuals, right? So my community is called the Murmuration, and the idea is it's not a social media type of thing. It's really dedicated for truth seekers to have a place where they don't feel crazy and where they feel like they can
Yeah.
explore. Because everybody in my family kind of thinks I'm crazy for
Mine
what I do.
too. I
Okay,
resonate with that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a
so
little
you know.
kooky. A little
Yep,
kooky. Yeah.
yep. Um, So the murmuration is for that. And then I was told to create an app. And the purpose of the app is like I read The Four Agreements just a handful of months ago. And I was like, oh, that's a great book. I love this book. If you haven't read it, read it. The Four Agreements. And um, I was so inspired. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to live by these four agreements. They're amazing. And then something happened the next day and I was like, okay, I know this is a situation where I should probably use one of those agreements, but I can't remember what it was. So the problem is we get inspired by something and then we either forget or we lose touch with it or we don't stay on track with it. So the app is really there to create that daily reminder or keep you on track. And it has meditations, but it's not a meditation app. It has exercises and questions that are similar to the book but not duplications. It has the community. It's totally customizable. Again, really excited about it, and that comes out within the month. And then
Yay.
yeah. And then I think I've covered all that. So Paramore Paradox is that ecosystem. It's that collection of things that are really designed to support a person who is a truth seeker in their process of seeking the truth.
Yeah.
There is a second part of my exploration and my work now that came about not from true self, um, but um, is something I'm passionate about. So I am ending the training. I am almost certified as a divorce coach, and I didn't even know what a divorce coach was. I thought that they worked with couples to help them stay together. It's not. That's not what they do, and they don't necessarily,
Not correct.
promote divorce, but they work with one individual to help them identify, whatever stage they're at. Is divorce right for you? If it is, what are the steps you need to do? Who are the professionals you need? What kind of, decisions do you have to make, kind of get in touch with the true self, like what's important to you, blah, blah, blah. So the reason I got really excited about that career, that profession, or that training is because it works on the same model. I do not pitch myself or sell myself or consider myself an expert in anybody but me. But what I have is this path of resources and process for you to hear you, because you're the only expert
Yeah.
in you, right?
Yeah.
All these self-help books are like the 10 steps to this or the 7 steps to that. The only thing you need to do is learn how to hear your truth. And that's what I give to people. So the divorce coaching is the same thing. I'm not there to tell them what to do. I'm there to help them hear what's important to them. And
Yeah.
I've decided to really niche down and specialize in working with lesbians and psychologically abusive marriages. That doesn't mean I don't work with straight men and, all of that. I intend to work with, anybody who feels they could benefit from a divorce coach. But my specific, like, person that I know I can help, that there's not that many people out there that can help them, is lesbians leaving psychologically abusive marriages. So, and those two, Paramore Paradox and that business is called Destination True 2.0. They're related, but Paramore Paradox is never supposed to know about the divorce coaching. That's not
Right,
what
right,
that's not what
right.
it's about. But the
Yeah, but you're
divorce
just
coaching,
basically
yeah,
you're following your soul's path.
right.
Yeah,
And the
I love
divorce
that.
coaching, at the end of the divorce coaching, once the person has kind of figured out enough about themselves to know what's important to them in terms of the divorce, usually they are then asking themselves, who am I? Right? Especially somebody in a psychologically abusive marriage. Who the hell am I really? And that's what Paramore Paradox answers, is who am I? And so some of those people will like Paramore Paradox, but that's not the intention,
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah. Well, I love this, and I love any program born from an experience that shaped who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think people can definitely resonate with that. And you're right, we have all the tools that we need. We just have to unlock them.
Yep.
I have loved learning about yours. Where can we find you?
I will definitely give you all the links, but Paramore Paradox has, and I've tried to spell Paramore Paradox all the different ways and have them all
Yeah.
route to the correct site. But at the bottom of that, it has my email, which is connect@paramoreparadox.com. You get me personally. There's nobody else, so you get me. You can do social media, but I'm actually just starting my social media, so there's not much on there. But by all means, you can DM me there. Um, that if you're a lesbian in a psychologically abusive marriage trying to figure stuff out, Destination True You, which is U 2.0, YOU, the number 2, the word point, the number 0.com is how you get there. So I'll include all that for you. I do have free resources, and some of them I just put on my website. So again, I'm so excited. So if they go to paramoreparadox.com and they click on shop, the shop has step 1, step 2, blah blah blah, and at the end it says free gifts, I think is what I titled it. And I have a lock screen. That's my logo.
Oh,
I
yeah,
have
your
a
website's
lock
really
screen.
cool.
Thank you. And then I also have things that I call mind expanding experiences, which are, you can call them meditations or practices or experiences or whatever, but they're guided. They're like 10, 12 minutes long, and the intention is to help you realize there's no take down the filter. So we filter reality through
Yeah.
expectations and experience. And I mean that's like scientifically proven, right? It would be
Right.
impossible for us to function in the world if we didn't have filters. However, the filters filter out a lot of stuff. It's actually like 0.9999999% of existence is filtered out. So if you realize there's a filter and figure out how to see the filter rather than see through it, you can then select what you want filtered out,
Right.
right? And so those experiences are designed to help you realize that you have control over your filter. And by changing your filter, you change your reality. You
Mhm.
literally change your experience in the moment if you know how to see your filter and how to get rid of the part of the filter that isn't working to your benefit.
Right. Man, those are
So
some great resources.
those are all free.
And I'll make
So
sure I include
yeah,
that link in the show notes.
awesome.
Well, Kristen, I've loved having you. Thank you so much for being on and for sharing yourself. I'm loving knowing that you're in the world doing such beautiful work.
Thank you for having me here, Melissa. And sorry I talked so much, but I am very
No, you
passionate
didn't
about
talk
what
so
I'm doing.
much.
So
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, how else are you going to explain if you don't talk? Okay,
thank
I'm going
you.
to press stop. Hold on just 1 second.
Okay.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share. Emotionally